Hi everyone and welcome to the webinar. Sorry for some technical delays in the beginning. It's always the same with new tools we are starting to introduce every week at this time. So webinar, succeed with self-service support. That's what we are going to talk about this hour. So before we start, I wanted to introduce you to ComAround. I know that many of you know us already, but some don't. So ComAround is a global software company that specializes in knowledge management and self-service support. We help customer service and support organizations to create an excellent agent and customer experience by building and sharing knowledge using ComAround's knowledge management software and expertise. And our tool is called Kamel Knowledge, and I will show you some examples of it today. Worth mentioning is also that thanks to a unique API platform, our tool can be integrated to any tool or any platform working with APIs. So besides our tool, we offer training and consultancy services within knowledge management, and in particular, the best practice methodology, KCS. KCS stands for Knowledge Centered Service. And the 5 factors for self-service success that we will talk about today are based on KCS. Moving over to a brief introduction of who I am. So my name is Heléne Källgården, and I work as a project manager, trainer, and consultant at ComAround. Half of my time I work with our customers on the tool side, and the other half I work with training and consulting within the KCS methodology. I'm one of 28 certified trainers in the world, and I really enjoy it. I get to meet so many great companies and people, and all are focusing on knowledge as a key asset of the organization. So in the webinar today, my goal is that you will learn a lot and get inspired to really make your self-service function successful. So learnings and takeaways will be the success factors for self-service support, solutions, both on the technology and the process side that you can use, and how you can decide which areas you need to focus on to improve your self-service function. We have a large number of participants today, which is great. And I think it also indicates that the topic is highly relevant during the current challenges that we have today. We have participants from 15 different countries, from the public as well as the private sector, from finance, IT, consumer products, healthcare, universities, and many more. So thank you all for joining. I will talk for about 45 to 50 minutes, and after that, I will answer any questions. You can use the Q&A panel in the Zoom toolbox, and you can submit questions anytime during the webinar, but I will go through them at the end. So the webinar is being recorded, and you will receive a recording as well as some work material connected to point 3 on the screen. I will go through theory as well as show practical examples, both from the process side and from the technology side. I'm going to use the term customer when I talk about a general user of self-service. So that can be both an internal user, so for example, an employee at your company, or an external user, so someone from an external company or a private individual or consumer, for example, of your products and services. Okay, so let's go. Self-service success. So self-service success means that many people use the self-service support function and they are satisfied with it. High-level goal for self-service support is to give access to knowledge with little effort and high value for the customer. If customers find useful information, 40 to 50% of the time, they will use it again. And customers will use a good self-service function 10 times more than they will contact us through assisted support. So, for example, instead of Googling, asking colleagues, finding workarounds, they will use self-service, which in turn gives us very valuable data on what problems and issues they are having. If they Google things, we will never know. So, a thing to keep in mind is the data aspect of everything that we do and the customers do. So we want to collect data on everything because that's very, very valuable to us. So some general success criteria. It requires careful thought and planning, just like anything else that you're doing in your organizations. It's dependent on relevant knowledge articles, of course, and we will look at that today. That's one of the big factors. And see it as a customer engagement strategy. So the opposite to that is seeing it as a call avoidance strategy. So we want to engage our customers and users since they are the ones experiencing our products and services. So we have a lot to learn from them, of course, and they know a lot of things as well. But I will get back to how we do that in terms of knowledge articles. A self-service strategy. So developing a self-service strategy is perhaps a separate webinar, but I want to stress that it's important to have it and give you some points to reflect on. The first one being who is or are the intended audiences. So define your audiences, and there are probably several. Are they technical? Are they not technical? What language or languages do they speak? You must consider a number of things here. And goals. What does success look like? So the day you celebrate, what have you achieved? And does it align with your high-level company goals? Because that's a really important part here. You know, this knowledge base and the work with knowledge and self-service is supposed to support the high-level strategy and the goals that we have in our organization already. And measures, how do we follow up? So how do we follow up what we're doing? If we don't measure, we won't know if we're doing the right things or if we're doing things right. So the 5 success factors for self-service support that we will talk about today are findability, completeness, access, navigation, and marketing. And now I will go through them one by one and I will discuss them and I will show you some examples. Starting with findability. So if no one finds the great knowledge we are creating, it's not worth much. And findability is driven by 3 things. The first one being context. So using the words and phrases that the customers are using, that's what this is about. So as experts on a subject, we often use our own words, which may not be the same as the customer uses. So the words and phrases in our articles must match the search words of the customer. Otherwise, there will be no relevant search hits. The second one is structure. So how we structure the content of our knowledge articles is key, both from a findability and a readability perspective. It also speeds up the creation process. And if you want to work with bots, it's crucial that you have structured content. The last one being environment statements. And this is about clearly stating the environment for the particular problem or question. It can be a system, an application, or a geographical location, for example. So let's look at an example of this. So there is something in KCS that's called article template, the KCS article template. So this is the over 25 years of experience defined as the ultimate template for knowledge articles, both from a creation point of view and readability and findability. So the 4 fields, see this as 4 fields, the 4 headings here. These are the ones that you should use. The first one being issue, symptom, question. So under this one, you specify what is the requester or the customer trying to do or asking. What is not desirable in their experience? What is happening? Here is where you're adding the phrases, the context, and the words of the customer. So what are they actually saying? It may not always be correct. You may know what's correct, but that is what they're saying. So here is where we're creating this fantastic findability. So the words and the phrases of the customer in this field. The second one, environment, that's where we specify platforms, products, model, revision levels involved, or changes in the environment, for example. So this is the agents of your field. So here you specify the correct name of the platforms and products that are sort of that this problem applies to. The third one, resolution. So what is the resolution to the issue? And here, use simple instructions using bullet points, or sorry, number lists, because it's a clear step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. That's very clear to anyone to see. And in the first two fields, bullet points is great. It gives a really easy and good overview, and it's easy for a customer to define that, yes, this is going to solve my problem, because here it is the same problem that I have is stated clearly here under the first heading. And also that the environment statements are the same as applies to my problem. The last one, cause, is optional because you don't always know the cause, and it doesn't always add any value to the article. So don't add it if it doesn't add any value. So I'll give an example here. So today, many companies use Microsoft Teams as the communications platform. Some still have Skype. And do you remember the days when it was Link? I know people that still link each other, and that's the term they use when they search the knowledge base. So therefore, link must be in the knowledge article in order for them to find it. So in this particular case, we would put link. So for example, link doesn't open under the first heading, under issue, symptom, question. Under environment, we would put Skype or Skype for business, for example. So whatever they use in their search phrase in self-service, they will find this article. I will show you the last part because this article is not complete. We still have the title. And an optimized title combines the most generic issue and environment. Try it and you will see. It's very clear in a search hit list what article to click on if you use these two in combination in the title. And this is a connection, one of the connections back to the mindset of this being a customer engagement strategy that I mentioned earlier. So we involve the customer in the problem solving and in creating findable and usable information in the knowledge base because we are including their words and phrases. So an example from our tool, ComAround Knowledge. This is what an article would look like, for example. So printer doesn't work, and then the printer model number. This is an easy example, but issue, question, so cannot print, error message when printing, printer doesn't work. Environment, so this is the printer number EP3498, and it's in building B, because maybe it's only, this problem only applies to building B, but not building A. And the resolution, simple steps 1 to 5. This is how you resolve this. And for those of you who use our tool, this is the button to actually open up this template. So you don't need to add the headings for each new article that you create. And you can, of course, make it a default if you want. So moving over to completeness, which is the second of the 5 factors. So most of what we know is available quickly in self-service. And I've added 90/0 there as a teaser, and I will tell you what it is shortly. So there are some key points here. The first one being volume and speed. So the primary enabler of success with self-service is volume and speed. The more we can get to self-service fast, the better. and how many articles are visible externally, which means in self-service, and how fast are they visible. So most of what we know that is self-serviceable needs to be available quickly. And the last one, use the 90-0 rule as a rule of thumb. So the 90-0 rule is 90% of what we know that is self-serviceable is available in self-service in 0 minutes. Yes, a bit provocative, but something you can aim for, at least for some questions and issues and some articles that you're creating. And to illustrate that time is valuable, we will look at this curve. So on the left, you have article reuse or views on articles, and you have the time at the bottom. So if we're looking at articles being used internally, we can always see, or not always, but we can see a peak after around 30 days. Because if an issue is going to reoccur, it will reoccur quickly in time. So 50% of the reuse happens within 30 days of the initial event. So if we then publish our articles for self-service here, we have missed this whole load of views that could have happened in self-service instead. In this case, the customer have called us or emailed us. So what we want to do is to publish the self-service here. Then all these views happening here can happen in self-service, and the customers don't need to contact us. That is a great experience for the customer. So getting to the third point, which is access. So the path of least resistance and best results for the users. So access is about offering easy ways to access self-service where low effort for the customers is key. And there's a couple of relevant questions here. So is it easy to find the self-service function? Where are the access points? Do they need to log in, for example? Do they need to switch windows? Is it hard to find it? Is self-service accessible where the problems and questions occur? So if we offer access to self-service where the problems occur, our customers are much more likely to use it because that's where it's relevant. So if they're using, for example, any Microsoft products, and that's where they have their issues, if they can access knowledge base in there without searching for it, then that is great. So we must make self-service easy to find for the audience. And a goal here is that they shouldn't have to search for it. So if you have a think about your self-service function, so where can your customers access it? Do they have to look for it? Do they have to ask for it? Or is it easy, accessible where they are, where they're using the tools or your products? So where are the paths of least resistance for the users? And this is also where APIs come in, which is a very powerful tool, if you want to call it that, to use, where you can actually provide access to the self-service function in almost any place, in any tool, if it works with APIs. So this is really something to consider. And I will show you an example here as well. So this is an integration between ComAround Knowledge and Microsoft Teams. So I know that a lot of organizations use Teams nowadays as their communications platform. So this can be, for example, for your agents, your service desk agents or the customer service agents, communicating, swarming around different problems or issues, asking each other to help out. It could also be a place where people actually contact you for help. So being able to access the knowledge base in this platform is really great experience. So in this case, we have an app that is an integration between Kamel Knowledge and Teams. So if you see at the bottom of the yellow square, that's where we have the ComAround knowledge base icon. So clicking on that one will open up the search, and it's the same search as we have in our tool. So here you can then search for something, you can find an article, you can go directly to the self-service portal, or you can, for example, share it with the person you're speaking with, or share it to a specific team. You can also search using the top as well, and you can access knowledge articles or the self-service portal from there. So a great way to use the platform where people are, where people communicate, where they work, where they answer questions, for example, and access knowledge straight from there. Another example is access to knowledge via mobile devices. So in this case, we have, for example, for smartphones or other mobile devices, like tablets, for example. So today, we are all working on the go, and we're not always by the computer when we need help with whatever it is. Certain groups are maybe never by a computer, but they still need to know how to do things. So I know that we have customers, for example, the store staff. So they don't have a computer next to them, but they usually have a phone of some kind or a mobile device. Service technicians as well, being out on the field, visiting people, fixing their products, for example. Medical people being out on the field, salespeople, or just anyone on the way to work, for example. So this is also a case of finding knowledge, having it accessible where the customers and the users are. And a lot of different possibilities in terms of mobility. So we're moving over to the fourth factor, which is navigation. So this is about no dead ends and choices on how to access knowledge. So the key factor here, the navigation one, is divided into two parts, and I will go through one of them first with some examples, and then I will go through the second part. So the first one is no dead ends. So a smooth transition from self-service to assisted support. That's what this is about. So if a customer searches the knowledge base and he doesn't find anything, there should be a smooth transition to assisted support. And experience has shown that dead ends are the most important factor for users to decide whether to use self-service again. So it's really something to think about. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If you have taken the time and searched and clicked, it feels fair that you should easily get assistance if you don't succeed. And this could be, for example, click to submit a case. So directly in the self-service function, you can click and you can from there submit a case to the service desk or the customer service, for example. Or click to chat with someone. And this could be a person or it could be a chatbot. But in both cases, the customer's search history and clicks can be transferred over to the agent or the bot who can see what their issue is about. So, and the customer doesn't need to start from scratch explaining what they have a problem with. So that is a really good experience for the customer. So they will then experience the self-service function as being really helpful, even if they, at the end, actually submit a case or speak to someone that helps them. But the transition is really smooth. They don't even think about it. The opposite here, if we do have dead ends, is that the customer is actually searching. They're spending their time, they're making the effort, just like we want them to do. And they're not finding what they're looking for. And then it's like a dead end. So what they need to do is to move over to another interface, for example, where we have the cases, where we log the cases, and start from scratch again. And they need to tell someone what the problem is, what the issues are, and everything again. And for the agent serving them, for them, it's like they don't even know that they have actually tried to search this knowledge base. So a smooth transition can transfer the search history and the clicks over to the agent, who can then start the conversation saying, "Hi there, I see that you have been searching for this and that. So did you not find what you were looking for?" And then make a choice either to help them find it or to actually assist them. So this is a really, really nice experience for the customer. So an example from ComAround Knowledge. So click to submit a case to assisted support. So in this case, we have a little envelope. So what you're seeing now is our self-service interface for self-service for consumers or customers and users. So clicking the envelope will open up an email with all the details needed for the agent or the recipient of that email. So that goes, for example, to a case management system or any other team that you want it to go to. So that's a really nice experience for the customer, and it's a really great help as well for the agents. And something that some companies have worked with is to experiment, for example, to provide people with advantage, like being further in the queue for assisted support if they have tried self-service first. So that's, if it's technically possible, something you can consider as well. So it's actually, you will benefit if you try self-service first. You will get assisted support quicker if you do it. And another example, so it's from ComAround. So if you have connected it to a chat, for example, in this case, it's a chatbot, but it doesn't have to be. It can be just a chat. So clicking that, you will get this little frame up. So your chatbot, in this case, and you can, for example, have the options to, ask your question if it's a person. For the chatbot, for example, in this case, would be able to see what you've searched for if it's an advanced chatbot, and it could suggest solutions and so on, and help the customer from there. And when we're talking chat, this is also connecting back to the importance of structure, because a chat is supposed to be a very fast support channel. No one really wants to sit and wait, not for someone to pop up here, but not when you have someone there. You don't want to wait for the answer. You expect it to come pretty quickly. So for the agent that is actually on the other side helping out, then having access to a structured knowledge base in this case will make the chat very efficient as a channel for support. Because they are going to search, they're going to discuss with a customer, and they're going to search, and they can provide a link to the article straight from here. And if we're talking a chatbot, so the chatbot is going to work much better if it has structured content to read from. And that's, for example, many organizations contacting us because they are actually implementing a chatbot project, and they realize that, oh, we don't have structured knowledge. So what do we need to do? So these are some of the keys. So this is very much connecting to the structure when we're talking about chats in both chatbot and a personal chat. So we're moving over to the fourth one, but the second part of the fourth key factor. So navigation, here it's actually in Swedish, but it's navigation in English. So this part of it is the success factor is connected to how a customer accesses knowledge once they are in the self-service function. So good interface is critical, of course. So with all tools, if it's a good interface and it's intuitive for the users, they are going to use it much more. So it needs to be easier for the users, for the customers to understand what to do where in the tool. Quite often, there's too many buttons, there are too many things to click on, too many items that confuses users. So some of the key things here is to have search and navigation. So by navigation, we mean using categories or similar to kind of walk your way to the relevant knowledge item, knowledge article. And it used to be that 50% searched and 50% navigated. But today, we all search to a much higher extent. So we used to Google, of course, we're a bit spoiled. We're searching every day, many, many times, and we always find something. But it's important to still offer both alternatives. Because, for example, if the customer doesn't have a particular issue, but just want to know what there is to learn about a certain topic or application or system, navigation may be a more relevant option than searching. So, frequently asked questions, recommended articles or topics, or top lists is also recommended to have. And we are used to this. So everywhere we go, if we're going to book a plane, a hotel, or buy something, we see what every other person that's been there or the people that are there just now are actually looking at. Because what others are doing may tell me that I should also have a look at this. Some of these may be automated based on usage. So for example, frequently asked questions, that's something that is probably pushed out by based on usage data. And some others may be manually pushed out. So recommended, for example, something that we in the service desk or the service organization want our customers or users to see. And then we have simple search and advanced search. So this is an option to narrow down a search using tags or various filters. So for example, on the advanced search side, you can offer, for example, filters on language. So you can choose from different languages, for example. Author, so who authored this article or whatever I'm looking for. Maybe a specific group that you know are writing articles or working with this topic that I'm looking for. Article format, for example, so text articles or video articles or a combination of the two, for example. So that really helps the user after the first search. They can narrow down the search using some of these filters, tags, to actually narrow it down and really find what they're looking for. And I will show you a couple of examples as well from our tool. So on the top, we have the search, and in this case, it's the sort of primary function since we know that people are used to searching, and that's what they expect to be able to do. So the search is a strong feature in this view. Just below, we have some categories. And I think this one shows as well the example that I mentioned, where you want to look at a specific topic and see what's there. So training, for example, the box on the right, that is something maybe that you don't search for, but you want to know, what do we have on training? So you can click on that category and you can see all the content that there is about training. So for example, it can be different platforms, applications, topics, where you can then browse around and find the training that you're interested in. And at the bottom, we have the widgets for promoted articles and trending articles. And in this case, promoted articles is something that is manually being pushed out because it's something that is maybe new. So it can be that we have a new telephone policy, so we want to push that out and we want to make people aware that we have an article on this. Or for example, Windows 10, the article at the bottom. So for example, if that is new to us, so we have just switched over to Windows 10, then that's going to be a hot topic. We want to tell people that we do have articles on this, so you can look here, you don't need to call us, for example. And on the right, you have trending articles. So, for example, how to, well, in our case, so what's been used the most the last 30 days, or it could be for the last day or week, for example. So this is also something that indicates that this is something that other people are interested in. So maybe it's interesting to me too. So for example, at a certain time of year, so just before the holidays, probably a lot of people are clicking on things regarding holiday policies, or how to add holidays, how to register holidays, how to add holidays to your calendar, or auto reply and things like that. So those one will probably pop up here just before the summer. So moving over to the last, so the fifth factor for self-service success, which is marketing. So launching is not enough. If you thought it was, then you will find out that it's not right. And you probably have found that out. So we have to take intentional actions to get customers to use self-service. It's not something that will just happen. So we usually say, like, build it and they will come, doesn't work. And that is true. So there's obviously a lot of things that you can do to promote self-service to your customers and your users. We have a lot of experience on that. So if you want to know more than the things that I'm bringing up today, you're very welcome to contact us at ComAround. A couple of examples though. So on hold phone messages. So when the customer calls, so during the message that they get to listen to, you can tell them that, yes, we do, you know, that we do have a self-service function where you can find answers to most of your questions. In the email footer, for example, so when you reply to cases or any kind of emailing that you do, so have a link to the self-service function or promote specific articles, for example. And of course, general visibility and access. So it can be physical in the rooms, you know, letting people know that it exists. It can be QR codes on your technology, like your printers and anything, where you can actually scan it and you get to it. So a lot of things. And here is a case of being creative. And of course, again, think about where are your customers. So that's where you want to tell them about the self-service function. And another good point here is to link cases to articles. So there's a lot of benefits doing that. But one of them is that if you have a case with a customer, and while you close the case, if you have an answer in self-service, include a link to that article in your reply to the customer, because they will then, when they click on the link, get to the self-service function, and they will be aware that it's there, and they will probably find that it's very good. And next time they need help, they may go there first before they call you. So that is a really good way of letting them know that we have all these great articles. And teach customers how to use the self-service function. So show them using screen share, for example, when you're in contact with them. Or set up some laptops where the users are and teach them and show them how it works and where it is. And of course, the best marketing is between satisfied users. So if they have a positive experience, they will use it, and they will use it a lot. And they will also spread the word. And I will end the 5 success factors here by, especially with a marketing one, tying back to the self-service strategy that I mentioned in the beginning. So once you have that strategy, create a simple communications plan for self-service. And don't make it too complex. It's not necessary. So, but if you know what you want to achieve, all you need to do is to define the key messages and communication channels and start letting everyone know all the great benefits of self-service support. So that is, I would say, maybe kind of a crash course in how to succeed with self-service support. And now it's your turn to do some work. So what I have prepared that I will provide you with after this webinar is some work material that you can use. It's based on these 5 different factors for self-service success. And the thinking behind it is that now when you have learned what to look for, you will use this to assess your own self-service function from the 5 perspectives. So I will show you the first page of this. And this one is about findability, which was the first one that we went through. So content in the context of the audience being served. So the first column here is the topic, so the question. And in the first case here, so do we capture and include the customer's words and phrases in our articles? So describe how you do today in the second column. So how are you doing this? Do you have a strategy for it? Or is it just happening when it's happening? And what improvement and actions you can have in place to make this much better. Second topic in this case, so structure. Do we have a defined article structure, including title structure? Because we know that this is definitely key for both readability and findability. So do consider this and then describe the status. What's it like in your organization, in your self-service function today, and what improvements you can make. So there's 5 pages to this, one for each of the 5 factors. So my tip is to really go through these and assess your organization, your self-service function, and then do some good work on it. So we've come to this part where I want to ask if there are any questions. And I shall see if I can get the questions up here as well. Here we have some questions. Okay, so James is asking, how do you account for people asking the same question in different ways? That's a really good question. So that ties back into when we were talking about the structure. So let's say that we have this template that I was showing you. So in the first section, we have the heading of a question or issue. And under this one, you can actually specify several ways of asking about this particular problem. It shouldn't be 20 different ways because then the article won't be readable. But you can definitely have like 5. Then I think if there's 5 different ways of expressing it, you will cover most of the different types of ways of expressing this particular question. And that is what you're supposed to do. So the first every time you create an article, you will just have one way of expressing this question. And then you have another customer calling in. It's about the same issue. Once you've defined that, you add that to the article as well. And then you have 2. And then you have 3, and then you have 4. And then somewhere there, you probably have covered most of the ways of asking this question with a number of different words that are then searchable. So you have given an example here as well. So the printer doesn't work. So in my example, they type, I cannot print, or my printer does not work. So yeah, that I would say is both a case of expressing it in a couple of different ways, both in, let's say, I would say I've placed 3 different bullet points, these 3 types, these 3 ways of expressing it. But here, it's also relevant what kind of search engine you have, because it should be so good so that you can actually tell that doesn't and does not is the same thing. So a good search engine is really key in general, working with knowledge and especially with self-service. So you should find out if your search engine in your tool can handle that. So NLP, or natural language processing, is part of this. So I hope that answers your question. And another one is if this will be recorded and available to replay. Yes, for sure. I will send you a recording of this together with the material. And we have another question. So what would be a good starting point in terms of article volume when you start self-service? A 90 would not be possible for the launch, would it? So a good starting point when you start self-service, it's if I look at the recommendations on how we work and what we teach our customers. So it's not so much about volume in number of articles, but there is a kind of a rule to this where you say that if you're looking at internal usage, so when you start off a new knowledge base, might not have to be a new tool, but you're starting off. So you're starting to create a lot of articles and you're using the articles internally. And when the curve of creation and the curve of reuse cross each other, then you are ready to launch self-service, because it tells you that we have for internal use so many articles that we don't need to create so many anymore. We are reusing more than we are creating. So that's a good indication that you have a good sufficient knowledge base in terms of volume. So that's a recommendation. And the 90 rule, if it would be possible for the launch, well, I would say that you should have an aim, but it depends a little bit on your tool, because you can always prepare your knowledge base with articles, so you can prepare it. So when you launch, you just need to switch them over to being external and visible in self-service. So you're starting to build for self-service before you launch it. So that's key. But the 90, I think it's more a case of when you have launched self-service. So that's right, because that's when you really want to aim for them being in self-service quickly. So I hope that answered that question as well. And if you feel that you didn't get enough an answer, so please let me know. You will get my contact details and you can contact me afterwards. So I didn't have any more questions coming in here. So what I will do is show you my contact details, but I'm not able to do that. Let me see if I can. There they are. So I want to end by saying thank you so much for listening. And I do hope that you feel that you learned a lot, that you got inspired to actually go back and do a lot of great work to make your self-service function successful for all your customers and yourselves. So these are my contact details, and please let me know if you have any questions on this. Otherwise, I thank you so much, and I take care of yourselves, and you will shortly receive the recording and the material. Thank you.